There is very little known about the lost Olmec civilization, though it's considered the mother culture of Central America. But a massive new discovery could change everything we know, or it might just deepen the mystery.
Summer 2020 in the state of Tabasco in southern Mexico. Archaeologists are surveying the land from above, armed with a new technology called Lidar. It stands for Light Image Detection and Ranging. Laser beams are sent to the ground and bounce back, creating a digital map of areas hidden for centuries by thick, dense vegetation. The team is working in the remote jungles when their Lidar detectors uncovered this. It's a series of images which appear to be a city containing rectangular plazas and platforms with distinct lines and edges.
So remember, this isn't a photo, it's a laser image of the jungle from above, enabling us to see what's covered by the canopy and underbrush. So take a look at these rectangles. Here, here, and then we've got a large one here. Some of them are nearly a half-mile long. And then take a look at these lines here. I'm just wondering, I could be wrong about this. Could they be roads?
Dr. Takashi Inomata led the team that made the discovery.
It was really great, particularly those perfect rectangular shaped site. That's something we were not expecting.
Writer Eric Grunhauser says some have speculated it's a famous, legendary lost city.
These structures and the mysteries surrounding them really harken back to some older legends of lost cities, of the idea of El Dorado.
El Dorado was a legendary city filled with gold that the Spanish conquistadors heard rumors about while exploring the New World in the 1500s. Many died in their unending quest to find it, including the English courtier Sir Walter Raleigh, who was beheaded for battling the Spaniards during the fruitless search. Yet another theory about this site is that it's evidence of the oldest civilization known to Mesoamerica.
These structures could possibly have been created by the Olmec civilization. There are only two other major sites where we know the Olmec to have lived.
The Olmec date between 1600 and 350 BC, hundreds of years before the more well-documented Inca, Mayan, and Aztec empires. It's still unclear how and why their civilization vanished.
We thought we already knew about many of those big sites. Some of them are almost kilometer long, and then they have perfect rectangular shape, which was surprising.
So, who really made this large site, and why? Based on the images and Olmec-style rock carvings found recently in Morelos, Mexico, some speculate this could have been used for religious rituals like human sacrifice. These and similar artworks suggest Olmec leaders ritually killed captives of war and other elites to gain the favor of the gods.
Although the fate of the Olmec is unknown, one thing is definitely clear. Lidar is the future of archaeology. In fact, another recent Lidar find uncovered this 1,500-year-old urban settlement in the Bolivian Amazon. More evidence that cultures we've always thought of as undeveloped were actually more sophisticated than we ever imagined. But are these ruins in Mexico the remains of the Olmec civilization or something else? Let's see what our experts can dig up.
Archaeologist Dr. Ed Barnhart says it's unlikely this could be the ancient lost city of El Dorado, as some have speculated, since the Mexican state of Tabasco, where it's located, is not known for gold deposits. But maybe instead it has something to do with the search for liquid gold.
Mexico's national oil company, Pemex, has been intensively working in there. So it's possible that some of those things that look ancient might be overgrown Pemex platforms.
But as he looks more closely, Barnhart recognizes the pattern of these structures as something familiar to archaeologists.
This entire thing was once a big platform with buildings and probably big sculptures as well. We're talking about huge areas upon which the Olmec put their cities.
Anthropologist Kathy Strain points to another important clue.
It looks like mounds that we already know about that are at the two other complexes that we know are associated with Olmec. The Mayans came along later and they occupied a different place in that jungle. And so we know this was exclusively Olmec because of where it's located.
So we think it's Olmec, but we still don't know exactly what we're looking at or what purpose it served.
It is possible that this could represent a burial ground, but burial mounds tend to be small, What this could be is a platform for religious purposes. You would have the ruler at one end and a parade going up the middle, spectators on the sides.
A rendering of what this platform may have looked like demonstrates that the Olmec were likely the first Mesoamerican civilization with the engineering know-how to build such monumental stone structures.
But we won't know that information until we see what it looks like physically.
Now, of course, it's long been suggested that various Mesoamerican sites like the Nazca Lines in Peru were designed to communicate with or even guide extraterrestrial visitors. Mainstream archaeologists usually dismiss these theories, but even they remain mystified about this latest find.
Honestly, we don't know what they are. We don't know why they built this and what they mean.
Our verdict? Olmec archaeological site. But what it's for and why the civilization collapsed is still unknown. We do know that the Olmec invented calendars, created the system of mathematics, and they even had toothpaste. But the exact extent of their sophistication remains a secret covered by the jungle.
It's October 2020 in Telwara, Bihar, India. A villager is making his way into town when he spots something almost demonic. He grabs his camera and records this. A goat clearly walking on its hind legs. The creature advances down the road. As we push in, the goat, seemingly unaware that it's being watched, struts for several yards before dropping down on all fours. Take a look at this baffling display.
Wow, that's crazy.
Field researcher Ken Gerhardt discusses the goat's connection to a dark figure from the fringes of Christianity.
The Templars from the Crusades would worship this deity known as Baphomet, which was often portrayed as a half-man, half-goat type creature. That particular imagery has been adapted and passed down up until modern-day times when Satanists and pagan belief systems will worship Baphomet.
Early Christianity co-opted pagan beliefs and associated them with the devil in order to discredit paganism at a time when Christianity was spreading. To further demonize paganism and goats, societies went as far as to create humanoid goat monsters.
Krampus, a folkloric figure from Alpine mythology, a half-man, half-goat-like creature that appears only on Christmas, sort of the antithesis of Santa Claus.
In the Bible, the book of Leviticus tells of a ritual in which one goat is sacrificed while another is touched by a priest and imbued with the sins of local residents. It's then sent into the woods, taking the town's impurities with it. That's where the term scapegoat comes from. Which explanation for this upright goat is the greatest of all time? Let's ask our experts.
Catholic miracle historian Michael O'Neill discusses the possibility of Satan possessing an animal.
If we were to look at the point of possession in the first place, Satan is looking to capture souls, to deprive that soul from union with God. And so when we talk about animals not having an immortal soul, we say Satan wouldn't bother with possessing an animal. So we can rule out animals altogether based on that.
So what about the thought that this could be the satanic entity Baphomet?
Baphomet is a modern conception of what the devil would look like, perhaps a symbol that's used by Satanists in modern times. The idea of associating Baphomet, the pagan idol, with a goat is a satanic convention starting in the 1850s. We see this goat walking like a person, and people might say, well, there's Baphomet, but there's absolutely no connection between the two.
That answers why goats are associated with Satanism, a rep they have not earned. But why is this one walking? Wildlife biologist Dr. Stephanie Schuttler has a hypothesis.
Goats are pretty smart animals. There have been instances of goats learning how to open door latches and let themselves in and out. They often go on their hind legs to be able to reach those plants more out of reach.
The foraging goats engage in what is called browsing. Having evolved in mountains, they've adapted to finding food in hard-to-reach places. They're selective about which foods they eat and are able to stand on their hind legs and reach with their mouths to obtain a snack of choice.
What I think is happening here is that this is a well-trained goat. Perhaps it was taught to go on its hind legs for tricks, these aren't the only quadruped animals that have been taught to walk on their hind legs. People have trained their dogs to walk on their back legs, and also bears. I can definitively say that this is a well-trained goat doing a pretty cool trick.
Our verdict? This is a well-trained goat. While this behavior is out of the ordinary, goats were one of the first animals to be tamed by humans. I guess it's no huge surprise that they've learned to walk like us. I'm just waiting for them to do my taxes.
It's February 2022 outside the city of Evora in Portugal. A man who's from out of town sightseeing sets out to explore the area from a bird's eye view with his drone. His aerial videos show a grouping of large gray boulders in a clearing surrounded by trees. The stones are arranged several rows thick in an oblong oval shape. Closer-up photos from the ground show that the boulders stand on end at various heights. Journalist Eric Grunhauser says this strange site is known as the Almendres Cromlech. Cromlech means circles of stone, and Almendres from the Portuguese word for almond, referring to the stone's shape.
This collection of some 93 standing rocks is thought to predate Stonehenge by around 2,000 years. So this Portuguese formation is actually much older and much more mysterious.
It's believed that the main design of the Almendres Cromlech was completed by about 5000 BC. That makes it more than 1,000 years older than the pyramids of Giza, Stonehenge, and the earliest known permanent urban settlements on Earth. Who could have built the structure, and how?
Without technology like the wheel, moving these stones would have been near impossible for normal humans.
It's believed that the first wheeled vehicle wasn't even invented till at least 3500 BC in Mesopotamia. So the mystery about these stones deepens.
They're so heavy that it's hard to believe that without some system involving wheels, pulleys, that these stones would have been able to be brought to standing.
Another strange thing, the site had been forgotten for centuries. It was only discovered back in 1964, and there are no records to indicate what its purpose was. Some wonder if it has some celestial significance.
These standing stones are arranged in such a way as to align with the sun, the moon, the stars. On the winter solstice, the shadows that they cast actually point directly to another standing stone some 2 kilometers away.
Since some of the stones bear unusual carvings, others suggest the cromlech might have served a more religious function. Could a large flat stone found in the middle have been used as an altar to carry out ritual sacrifices?
Recently, another standing stone structure was discovered in Jordan that's thought to be even older at an estimated 9,000 years old. Believed to be a sacred site used by a Neolithic hunting group, it doesn't have the astronomical precision of the Portuguese site. So is the Almendres Cromlech the oldest known application of astronomy in the world? If so, where could this knowledge of the stars have come from? Let's ask the experts.
Anthropologist Kathy Strange says it's likely these Neolithic people achieved this huge feat with some ingenuity and a lot of sheer willpower.
It is theorized that they would take logs, use rope. They likely used their cattle to help pull the stones along. After it gets off one log, you run it up to the front to put it in front of that, and so on.
Yet how were these prehistoric people able to so precisely place these stones? Did they have some secret celestial or spiritual knowledge? Most experts think the alleged sacrificial altar is just a knocked-over boulder that's been chipped away at over time. But archaeologist Dr. Ed Barnhart believes the stones could have had some ritual significance.
Perhaps it's astronomer priests who are watching the cycles of the heavens. They were putting them in the ground in an arrangement that was based on watching the sun rise and set over a year.
In addition to lining up with the solstice on the vernal and autumnal equinoxes, the sun and moon rise and set over exactly the same points on the monument's axis. And Barnhart says this configuration may have served a very practical purpose.
Once you're a farmer, you've got to know when to plant and when to harvest and when to do it again. That's that cycle. So These stones, acknowledging the solar year, are at least related to agriculture.
Moving from a nomadic existence to a more sedentary one allowed people to observe the cycles more precisely. And interestingly, it's one of several sites throughout Europe. And though Barnhart says they were probably for farming, they also might be early art.
They go from the Netherlands all the way down into the Mediterranean. I think that these stones are early man's attempt at immortality. People said, let's do something so amazing that people, well after we're dead, will remember it and admire it. But what they called themselves, it's hidden to history.
Our verdict? These images likely show a celestial calendar, a sort of giant sundial for seasons rather than times of the day. Whether its purpose was astrological, agricultural, or simply artistic is lost to time.
It's October 2021 near the Taima Oasis in northwest Saudi Arabia. Photographer Satish Javili is trekking through the remote desert area to document a magnificent sight. His shots show a monumental rock formation in the shape of a rounded rectangle. It appears to be a monadnock, which is an isolated mass of stone. The 18 by 27-foot ochre-colored slab is covered in prehistoric petroglyphs of horses, camels, and hunters, shown in stark relief and detail. But these 4,000-year-old drawings are not the most notable feature of this formation. That honor is reserved for a perfectly precise crevice that divides the rock in two. The crack is so straight and exact that it seems impossible it could be natural or even man-made without the most advanced precision tools. What's even more remarkable is that each half is balanced precariously on a pedestal, yet the formation remains standing after millennia. Satish says he's never seen anything quite like it.
It is simply mind-blowing, the way the rock has been split. The archaeological specialists have gone there, but nobody has come out with the right answer.
The large, solid boulder looks as though it was split in half with the aid of a precision laser. It's hard to believe this perfect crack down the middle could have been accidental.
So there are a couple of things I want to show you with the Al Nazla rock. First of all, this pedestal right here. This pedestal right here. Built for monuments to rest on, right? Take a look at the line down the center. How does this happen? If you had a stone saw, could you cut the stone that perfectly? Again, there are petroglyphs all through this rock. This rock was created hundreds of thousands of years ago, and it has certainly spawned wild and amazing stories.
Journalist Eric Grunhauser says one theory is that the people who drew the glyphs 4,000 years ago also split the rock. But did they have advanced enough technology at that time?
The ancient cultures of the area were working with much more rudimentary tools than one would expect to be able to create something with such precision. It's almost as if someone would have had a laser or some sort of highly precision saw to create this sort of break.
There was a nomadic people roaming the Arabian desert a few centuries later who were known for their engineering skill.
It could have been created possibly by the Nabatean people, same culture that created the Petrosite in Jordan, whose knowledge and expertise would have possibly been advanced enough to create something with such precision as we see in the Al Nazla formation.
But even the Nabateans didn't have access to high-tech tools like laser cutters and circular saws. So the exactness of the cut has led some to speculate it could have been made by advanced ancient visitors from another planet.
Is it possible that the Al Nazla formation was created by extraterrestrials? Was it left as a gift, not unlike the monolith from 2001, A Space Odyssey, to push humanity forward, to inspire us?
As early as the 5th century BC, the Nabateans began carving elaborate multi-story building facades into the red sandstone cliff faces of Petra. But that site is in Jordan, 450 miles away from the Al Nazla rock, and it involves more complex carvings than a single straight line through one rock in the middle of nowhere. So that might be a stretch. Let's see what our experts can dig up.
Physicist Matthew Shadagis investigates to see if the rock in El Nazla could actually have been made by man or aliens.
So I've taken an image of the Al Nasla rock, and I've actually drawn two perfectly straight lines from my computer. And what you can see in several locations is that actually the rock pokes past the straight lines. So this gap is actually not perfectly straight. Humans could create cuts in rocks, and nearby civilizations here are known to have done that. No need for ancient aliens.
Since the line isn't actually as perfectly straight as it looks at first, perhaps it was made by people from the region. Archaeologist Dr. Ed Barnhart says nearby ancient civilizations like the Egyptians had special techniques for cutting into rock without high-tech tools.
The typical way that Egyptians would split a stone like this would be to get up on the top of it and peck holes into it in a line. Then, as they pecked the holes deep, they'd then put wooden stakes inside each one of the holes.
So the Egyptians would put the stakes in a straight line like the one seen at Al Nazla.
And then they would water those stakes like you water a plant. When the wood expanded together as a line of stakes, they would pull the rock apart, and that split will travel through the whole stone and split it.
But geologist Dr. Bob Anderson says there aren't any telltale signs of this construction technique that you would expect to see on the top or sides of the rock if the crack was man-made.
There's no chip marks, there's no pieces. You don't even see fragments on the ground around it that would say that if you're chipping and breaking.
So could this crack be caused by a natural disaster like an earthquake?
I realized that this Monadnock, or this isolated rock here, is not isolated. There's almost a trail of boulders going back. They're all cracked at the exact location. You can see that the crack is a result of regional tectonic features.
So Anderson believes the rock may sit on a fault line, and it's likely an earthquake or shifting tectonic plates created the crack not just in this boulder, but in other rocks along the same fault line. Or it could also be that the crack is a joint, which in geological terms means when a rock breaks naturally without displacement. It's rare, but sometimes the fracture can divide the rock in an unusually straight line. Another possibility is that freeze-thaw weathering may have caused the crack. But no matter how it was split in two, Anderson thinks erosion may have played a part in its near-perfect appearance.
The reason it looks so clearly cut is because it's been willowed out by the wind. It's being almost like sandblasted and polished, which has opened up that crack more.
The ground around and under the boulder eroded so much that eventually it was left just resting on these two natural pedestals. Someday the forces of gravity will likely cause it to collapse.
The Al Nazla rock has baffled scientists for centuries, but we think we finally found the true answer. Our verdict? Tectonic activity created a crack thousands or even millions of years ago. It was later perfected with erosion, which also made those pedestals the rock now rests on.